just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot till the world turns upside down. Till the world turns upside down. I imagine death so much it feels more like a memory. This is where it gets me. On my feet, the enemy ahead of me. If this is the end of me, at least I have a friend with me. Weapon in my hand, a command of my men with me. Then I remember my Elias is expecting me. Not only that, my Elias is expecting. We gotta go, gotta get the job done. Gotta start a new nation, gotta meet my son. Take the bullets out your gun, the bullets out your gun. We move undercover and we move as one. Through the night we have one shot to live another day. We cannot let a stray gunshot give us away. We will fight up close, seize the moment and stay in it. It's either that or meet the business end of a bayonet. The code word is Rochambeau, dig me? Rochambeau. You have your orders now, go man go. And so the American experiment begins with my friends all scattered to the winds. Lawrence is in South Carolina, redefining bravery. We'll never be free until we end slavery. When we finally drive the British away, Lafayette is there waiting in Chesapeake Bay. How did we know that this plan would work? We had a spy on the inside, that's right, Hercules Mulligan!
I tell a spy on the British government. I take the measurements, information, and then I smuggle it to my brother's revolutionary covenant. I'm running with the Sons of Liberty and I am loving it. See, that's what happens when you up against the ruffians. We in the shit now, somebody's gotta shovel it. Hercules Mulligan, I need no introduction. When you knock me down, I get the fuck back up again.
After a week of fighting, a young man in a red coat stands on a parapet.
We lower our guns as he frantically waves their white handkerchief.
And just like that it's over, we tend to our wounded, we count our dead.
Black and white soldiers wonder alike if this really means freedom.
Not yet.
We negotiate the terms of surrender. I see George Washington smile. We escort their men out of Yorktown. They stagger home single file. Tens of thousands of people flood the streets. There are screams and church bells ringing. And as our fallen foes retreat, I hear the drinking song they're singing. The world turned upside down. 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 Down, 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 down.
Freedom for America, freedom for France.
Gotta start a new nation, gotta meet my son.
We won!
We won, we won, we won!
The world turned upside down.
Hello, everybody. Wow, I hope everyone was just grooving along and enjoying this track, Yorktown from Hamilton, because one of the lines that really made famous in this song is "Immigrants, we get the job done." And of course, that's why I'm not hired on Hamilton.
Not at all.
But you're tuning in to Global Gap, and of course tonight's session is how to book without an agent, and we have invited Eddie Lee, whom we'll bring on shortly. But if you're wondering where does Global Gap place in this whole festival, currently we're having Global Forms Theater Festival. We started on June 1st, and now we're 6 days in. We have 6 more days to go. So do log on to Rattlesticks website. We still have in-person shows. We still have a lot of virtual programming. We have 6 more days of programming to celebrate immigrant artists in the US. And so many of us have come together to put this festival together for you because we really believe that immigrant artists are worthy to be celebrated and their talents are worthy to be showcased. All right, so enough about me. You didn't come to listen to me. You came for the one and only Addie Lee.
Hello, hello.
All right.
I don't know. I came for you, Jody.
Oh, you came for me. Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
even
yeah.
tell people my name. My
Oh,
name is Jody. I'm a born and raised Singaporean, and I'm working as an actor and a host and a theater producer in New York City. And Eddie, as you can see, his very impressive bio is in the chat box. But more impressively, I think Eddie Lee is a wonderful human being, and I've had the pleasure of chatting with him during this preparation process. And Eddie was the first Asian American male dancer to be hired on Hamilton, and he also now swings in for the role of Hamilton. And this fall, Eddie will be a part of K-pop, a new show on Broadway.
yeah.
Ooh.
Crazy.
Oh,
When you say
great.
that out loud, I'm like, that's my life. That's weird.
That is your life.
It's crazy.
Does it not feel like your life? What is this Eddie feeling like your life is right now?
I don't. It's wild. Just because I mean, I grew up in Michigan, and like found performing to be my passion like later in high school, and like didn't do it in college, and it's really humbling just to see it, I guess, laid out and hear you talk about it. Yeah, it's cool. I don't know if I would have believed that I'd be here
Wow.
however long ago that was.
Okay, give us a little bit of a snapshot. How did this Michigan boy end up in New York City? Can you give us like some snippets here and there so we can understand your
Yes.
journey? a little bit?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I grew up in Michigan. I think I found I always say that what brought me to performing and musical theater was watching the movie You Got Served, actually, because I saw that and I wanted to learn how to break dance. But there's yes, but there's no place in Michigan at that time. There was no place to like really find a studio that did that. So I was trying to learn on my own. My mom, though, happened to be, she's a doctor. She had patients. She was mentioning to her patients about it. And there was like a new school that opened up it was a local in East Lansing that had gone to New York and came back and like opened up the school. I went there for a summer program and then found out that I like really loved to perform and wanted to do it. I talked to my mom about it, but her being an Asian parent was very not. Actually, she was pretty progressive for having that stereotype. She was definitely like hesitant, but she gave me a chance to try and pursue it because I wanted to go to college for it.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's the University of Michigan. There's like it's really well known as a musical theater program. But she told me if I auditioned for the summer program and got in, then we'd rethink it. I didn't get in, so the path was to go to school for medicine, and just within that, when I graduated, I ended up I did an internship at a personal training gym, and one of my mentors there asked if that's really what I wanted to do, because I think she just read me. I don't know how,
Oh.
but she just said she saw me interacting with clients and being there and saw that I was like really radiant and had like a light about me. But when I talked about studying medicine and applying to med schools, she
That
didn't see
light
the same thing.
the
It was
light left
yeah.
you.
Yeah, or it was
Became
I don't know, it
soulless.
faded, dimmed, maybe, possibly.
Yeah.
But because of her, I ended up
Wow.
rethinking everything again and realized that this is what I wanted to do. And I
Yeah.
went back to that studio and then trained for like a year and a half there, and then moved out to New York and tried to hit the ground running,
Wow.
auditioning, trying to take as many classes as I could and learn as much as I could to try and catch up. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So Eddie, kinesiology, am I saying it right?
Yes,
So
kinesiology.
that's what you went to school for. What
Yes.
is that?
So it's yes, it's the study of muscle movement in the body, basically. Kinesio, like
Yeah.
that stuff. Kinesthetics is movement, and
Yeah.
then so it's the study of movement. So I was originally going to try and do actually something akin to physical therapy, but
Okay.
hence I learned a lot about the body. It's actually really helped me as a dancer to help keep my body intact and like understand, because now I've started to like kind of deal with some injuries here and there, like at the show and stuff. And the PTs there or the physical therapists there, they'll say things and I can be like, oh, I remember learning that way back when.
Yeah.
And then so can activate those specific muscles or at least visualize. It's very fascinating. I don't know, the
Yeah.
anatomy of the body. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah, that sounds so interesting to have such an in-depth understanding of your body medically and also being able to use that knowledge towards your performance. That's like
Mhm.
a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
So I guess my next question is how long, so you said then you moved out to New York. If you don't mind us asking, how long ago was that? So that, in case people want to reverse engineer it, how long
Of
did Eddie
course.
move here, and then how long did it take for Eddie to like reach Broadway?
Yes, yes. So I moved here in the summer of 2013, and
9 years
it's
ago.
almost, yes, I'm almost at my decade of being in New York. I think that's
Yeah.
the stamp of you're an actual New Yorker then or
Wait,
something.
Eddie, that's when I moved to New York too. I
Wait,
moved to New
really?
York fall of 2013. I
No
moved here
way.
I moved to New York for school, for acting
Oh
school
my
from
gosh.
Singapore. So we're almost at our
Amazing.
decade. Almost
Yes,
at our decade.
amazing. High five.
Okay, let's go high five. Okay, so what happened after you moved to New York?
Oh my gosh. What happened? I mean, I hit the ground running. I tried to audition, learn as much as I possibly could. Hence the title of this program or our global gap
Oh,
is I
did we
didn't have
not
an
mention
agent.
what it is? How
Oh
to
no.
book without an agent.
No, I think you did. I think you did
I
say it,
did.
or at
Okay,
least I
okay.
believe.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yes, so since I came to the city, I didn't have an agent, and my thinking was that since I was so fresh to this, I needed to go to as many auditions as I possibly could because I needed to gain experience and gain stuff on my resume to before I could even go to an agency or anything for them to even consider me is what I figured in my mind. And I guess I know I got very lucky with some of the jobs that I started to book right off the bat. I mean, I like did like a small little like dance piece that was like being created by people from the University of Michigan. I went to Michigan State, they're rival schools, but it was just kind of funny that they gave me my first job in New York, technically. But I did.
So what
It's
were you
funny.
booking when you first reached here? Were they mainly dancing? Because you didn't go to school you only did a summer program.
Yeah.
And so you basically you came to New York with dance skills, but did you
Mhm.
get a chance to polish your acting, singing skills in any way? When you walk
Yeah.
in the room, did you feel like you were equipped?
That's a really good question. I actually don't know if I felt equipped, but I mean, the programming that I did at that school, it was acting, singing, dancing, trying to learn that. I learned like how to enter an audition room. Although even that, I'm like, still sometimes I don't even know exactly what it is, how to enter an audition room. I think there's like rules, which is funny because, well, there are rules set, but I feel like at the same time, if you don't follow that, I mean, within reason, I think you still have to be respectful and everything. But
Yeah.
I've found that some of the like the rigid things that I learned back then was not really how the rooms, at least now, are
Yeah.
or when I came to the city, operated.
We're
They're
talking
a bit like more,
specifically about musical theater audition rooms,
yes, or
right?
yeah, musical
Yeah,
theater audition rooms.
because
Yes,
it's
with like
very different from like a play or
mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
because I was also taught like you walk in and then you take the binder, you put it down, and then you tell the person it's so robotic.
Yes, it is.
And
It
and you
is.
then you just go, what is the next thing I'm supposed to say? I think I just fucked this up.
Yeah. It gets you in your head so much, but I feel like if you remember that they're just people. It's a room that as long as you enter with like kindness or like being there and ready for like kind of anything, you can still go to like the person and do those moves. But like I feel like you and I had a similar thing. Then it was like, oh, I have to do this, and if I don't do this, they're gonna think I'm
Not professional enough.
yes,
I'm so
yes.
green. I'm not ready
Hmm.
for the New York industry.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so you were booking like dance pieces. Like what was your first musical theater gig that you landed?
My first musical theater gig that I landed was a regional production of Miss Saigon,
Hmm.
as an ensemble member. But that was crazy because I remember, I think I auditioned for that like in the fall when I got here, like sometime August, October or something, and it was for next summer. But I didn't get, or no, wait, sorry, that was January of
Mm.
2014. And it was like something happening in the summer. I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything until the week before I got a phone call. I had finished doing a small little play, and they were like, someone just dropped out. We're wondering if you'd like to, like, are you free to come and all this stuff? And it was like, yes, I was, but like in my head, like it was gone, it was past, which I think is a good thing that I wasn't like harping on it so much, but it really was just like that came out of nowhere. And it was a union production of it. And I was, terrified. I see, actually, that's the production I met Diana Huey on,
Ah.
which is that connection. Because she was the Kim and she was incredible. But I remember like talking to her and like other people that were more established, and just being like, I feel so new. Like I didn't even think that I earned that part since it like came last minute and I was a last minute replacement. So I think they like offered me my equity card, but I ended up declining it, because you have a one-time kind of like pass, you can do a job, but the next time you have to join. And I just wasn't sure if I was ready for it. At the time, like afterwards, when I came back to the city, I regretted it slightly, just because having the equity card kind of just lets you get into the room. Like you're guaranteed to be seen. I know for guys, it's easier to kind of go to an open call and like not be outnumbered by like
Yeah.
the sheer like volume of people that show up. Like because the girls, it's like there's so many that it's really difficult to like show up and then be seen, if
Yeah.
you're non-union. But I like slightly regretted it, but I got to do it like another show that was like an immersive thing that was non-union. So I like got some cool experience there. But then my second like big, well, not big, but union job was The King and I. That was in Dallas, but that was another last minute call. Like I got a
It's
call.
okay. It's okay.
It's crazy.
That means
Yeah.
it's meant to be yours.
Right. Yes. Yes. It really was like the
Yeah.
universe. At least for me, I've definitely felt like, especially with like my journey, because up to that point it was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go do medicine, but then like the
Yeah.
universe placed
Yeah.
someone in my life to be like, actually, are you sure that's what you want to do? And then I came here and then auditioned, and then it's like super like pieces fall in different ways that you don't even know that are happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then that's the one where I was like, when I got that, then I was like, they offered the card, and I was like, I'm taking it, and yeah. So
Eddie, I'm not shitting you. That's how I got my first equity gig too.
really,
Oh, actually, someone from, so it was a production of White Pearl at Studio Theater, and the
oh,
person who got cast in that role, I think was someone from Hamilton, and
really,
I forgot her name for the life of me. I can't remember now, but she pulled out, and it was like 2 weeks before rehearsal started. They called me.
amazing.
I was like traveling, and I'm like, yeah, I'll pack my bag. I'll go to DC, and that's my first equity production.
That's so amazing.
It-
So
you
amazing.
you just got, and I had like you, I already let it go.
Yeah,
You know, because
yeah,
you don't want to harp on something that was not meant to be yours. And then when you get the call, you're like, yeah, I'll go.
yeah, yeah.
I'll
You're like, absolutely.
gas a little bit, but and it was so interesting. It's so interesting to me that the first time when you offered your equity card, you said, "No, I'm not ready." And but the universe is trying to tell you, Eddie, you're ready.
You're ready. Yes, exactly, exactly. Which is another thing too. At least in my
Yeah.
case, it was like the universe came back around and was like, listen.
I'm telling you already.
Yeah.
I'm the universe. Okay, so at this point, your second equity contract, finally you accepted your card, but still no agent yet.
Still no agent. No, still no agent.
Why are they sleeping on you?
Well, no, well, so I mean, part of that I feel like was me. I was like not lazy, but I just I was going to auditions and like doing the hustle, and that was like taking up so much time that that's just where I put like my focus and energy into, which I think was good. It was like the work and getting that experience, but that okay. So when like time frames of stuff.
Okay, after The King and I, what happened?
After the King and I, actually, I came back to the city, and one of the people there was a fitness instructor. And when I came back, I ended up being like, I need to like actually maybe I'll go to this audition. They had an audition for like this trampoline choreography class and stuff. So I went and I ended up like getting hired as a trainer and all this stuff.
The
And
hustle is real, huh?
the hustle is real. The hustle is
Mhm.
real. But
Yeah.
it was great for one for my body to get into really good shape, but it was not great for my voice. I ended up like because you have to yell and like speak over loud music and get a lot of people hype. I started to do damage to like my cords, or at least I would teach class and then not be able to like sing or all of that, and I'd have to wait and recover. I was actually starting to get into or trying to work into getting into voiceover stuff, cartoons and animation at that time. And my teacher was kind of like, "Ooh, your voice is like that sounds like painful. Like maybe they gave me remedies, all of these stuff."
Yeah.
And because I fell like really far into that fitness element,
Yeah.
but realized that I was not able to go to auditions anymore. Or I started to be afraid to go to auditions. Not that I wasn't afraid before, but
Yeah.
it was like, oh, I can't sing,
Yeah.
so I shouldn't even like bother to go. And it was, and then I had a wake up call where I was like, I came here to audition. Let
Not
me
to
actually
jump
like try
on
and
trampoline.
yeah, not to jump on track, although it's really fun.
Yeah.
I definitely, uh, I so I ended up kind of stepping away from that, put in my notice, and around that time was when Hamilton was kind of getting a lot of buzz from the public. They were opening on Broadway, and I feel like actually Hamilton was the first audition that I like went to after like putting in my notice and like stepping away from that fitness thing. It was an open call because again, no agent, and that started my year and a half long journey of auditioning with Hamilton until I got cast from that first open call.
Okay, tell us from the beginning of the year and a half.
Yes, okay. I apologize if details get crazy, but it was so. I mean, at least with the union, they require every 6 months that a Broadway show has to have an open call. Just like whether or not they're actually looking, they have it. So I went to I think that first call. I got a call back. I went as a dancer because that I felt was my strong suit. I had heard and listened to it, and it was like hip hop and musical theater. Oh my gosh, like that's me. So I went there, got a call back to dance, but didn't hear anything beyond that. So it wasn't until 6 months later that I went to that next open call. It was they were looking at Chicago, I think, or something, and they made an announcement. They're like, we're not currently looking for people, but we're bolstering our roster. So like, thank you for being here and all that stuff. So I did that audition, didn't get a call, didn't get a call back. 6 months after that, so a year after the initial one that I went to, there were auditions for the Angelica tour. It was like the first that national tour, and then there was auditions for Broadway that were like 2 weeks apart. I can't remember which one was first, but I went to like the singer call and to the dancer call, got a call back for the dancer call for like we'll say it's the Angelica tour. That was like the audition 2 weeks before the other. And so as that next 2 weeks was coming, and it was like another round of auditions, but they were like, it was posted differently. I was like, should I go? Should I not go?
Yeah,
They've seen me.
At this point, did you already like start to feel like this is not happening, they're just stringing me along?
No, at that point, well, I mean, I still don't have the greatest like self-esteem of myself. To
Yeah.
me, at that point, I was like, I still need to like keep going and I still need to
Yeah.
prove myself, or I need to keep learning. And every time I go, it's like another opportunity to learn. Is like the mindset that I kept having with it. And at that point, I still didn't have an agent, but I know like so many people, they're like, oh, like I've heard from friends and stuff, it's like they know you, they'll call you, like don't waste their time, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That kind of talk is like was in my head, but I don't know why it came to me. But I was like, I don't have representation. This is well, it's a show that really resonated with me, being like hip hop and all of this stuff, that I was like, I feel like it's I can get into this show. There's like other shows that like I'm not as technically trained as a dancer and everything, that I was like, that's not a possibility, but this is. So I was like, I have to keep going. If it's the only chance that they're going to see me, I'll let them tell me no, but I'm going to keep showing up. So I went to that call that was like 2 weeks later, went to the singer and the dancer call again, got another call, like singer called back to like sing with Alex Lacamoire, who was the music director. And then a week after that, I got an email to be invited to a boot camp, which there's a Hamilton boot camp. If you don't know, some shows, I don't think all shows do this, but if it's a show with like a particular style or singing wise is like very difficult. I know Jersey Boys does like a Frankie boot camp because like the placement of the voice is so particular. But with Hamilton, the movement is really particular. So it was me and I think 10 other people at the time, but they hired us for a week. We got to have like an intensive where we learned like 4 of the numbers, learned the music, I got to see the show. And so I was like ecstatic. I was like, oh my gosh.
This was an invitation to a boot camp, but they haven't offered you the contract yet.
Right.
So it's like the audition after the audition.
Yeah.
It's like a second date. After a year.
Well, I mean, I guess if the callback is like the second day, this is like a
sleepover for the first time.
Yeah, or come meet my parents, I guess, or something like that.
Okay.
And so I was there, and I was like super excited. I was like staying up really late, trying to study, all of that extra work. But after that, they had one more final callback for the Angelica tour. And they said it was the final callback, and they like invited us and like a bunch of other people. And I auditioned and I didn't get it. And I was like devastated and crushed and like didn't know. At that point, I was like, did I do something wrong? All of that other stuff that like comes in your head. And I like talked to my mom, I talked to friends, and I was like, like a little defeated, but thankfully for my mom, she was kind of like, you were so close that you have to keep going. You have to keep going and don't like give up. And like, it was a very easy, like I could have been like, I don't need to go in for them anymore. They saw me, all of that stuff.
And
but
this
I'm like,
was
so
after the boot camp.
This is after the boot camp. This is after meeting their parents.
Oh my God. It's like you had the cake.
I had, right. But it slipped through somehow.
Yeah.
But I was like really grateful for like my mom saying that. And it was like a new like recheck for my brain of being like, I wanted to perform before I knew Hamilton existed. That wasn't even a thing that I like knew of back then. So I love to perform. I love to like storytell, and like, let me get back to the heart of that. So I kept working with other choreographers that I'd worked with, worked on my singing, all of this stuff. And 6 months later, they came another round of auditions that I went to, and I had a different mindset. It wasn't, I need to book Hamilton. It was, let me experience and storytell as the best that I can with this material. And like, I came to it with like a fresh perspective. And from that, they ended up offering me a spot in the Broadway company, which was.
Did you try to polish up your skill set in any way in between that?
I mean, yeah, like at that point, the choreographer that I worked with in Miss Saigon, my first job, had ever since that time kind of always asked me to like always asked me to be a part of anything that she was working on. She created this group called the Bring About, which tried to incorporate movement into musical theater writing at the beginning of the process as opposed to at the end of the process. So I got to like, me and like a group of people got to work with like new material, learn like new songs, learn like all of that, and get to add movement and just dance. And I mean, I was still auditioning, I was still doing everything else that I could that way, and still taking classes. And yeah, so I was always trying to polish. But then it was like, I guess that at least for me, it felt like instead of trying to go for the job, and it was more trying to connect to my love for the craft, it then ended up, I don't know, they saw something different, or they might have been looking for something different at that point. Who knows? Yeah, it's hard to.
Who knows? Okay, so now they officially gave you the contract. You officially signed.
Yeah.
Let's talk. And at this point, still no agent.
Still no agent. Funnily enough, I still don't have a theatrical agent. I do have a manager now, but even after, because it was one of those that a lot of my friends too, where they're like, "Oh, you booked Hamilton, you must be set for however long, like for all of that stuff. You've hit like the pinnacle." I got this manager, and he set up some appointments with me and some other agents, and I went and met with them, and they didn't want to work with me. I don't know why. I might have not been the greatest I don't know advocate for myself, because I'm like really I don't know, I like to look at myself with the reality to be like, I don't really know if I know anything, but I know what I do know, and I show up and I work hard and all of that, which probably doesn't sound, I don't know, so exciting to them. But
they talk about, bringing your report card to, a potential agent. I don't know what other report cards you can show to a potential agent. So I'm about to curse. I'm about to curse at these people that I don't know right now. But let's focus on you. Let's focus on you.
Well, no. Well, I was just gonna say that I think it's one of those that I feel like the kind of similar to how when we talked about before, the audition room, there's like rules or a set thing that you're supposed to do. I feel like the idea that you have to come to New York, you have to book an agent, and the agent will get you what you need, doesn't have to be the path that you get to. And so it is a path. And I don't think that if you're not if you're not getting accepted by an agent, that doesn't mean anything about your ability or what you have to offer. It's just that particular person not seeing in their mind, because they're trying to make money and thinking what's like the most marketable. They're trying to read what will be popular, who will book, or all of that stuff. And some people might have a better eye than others, but I'd say one thing is if you go to interviews or all of this stuff, which I wish I had done before, is that you're interviewing them to work for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Not necessarily you're going there to have them work, or to have you work for them. It's also the other way around. It's a relationship. And so if they don't want to work with you, I say good riddance. Don't harp on that and make you feel like you're less than. Go to find the next one, or keep working on yourself to like, and put yourself out there, because you can get who knows what falls into place.
And you get to keep more of your paycheck.
Yes, there's that too.
More people trying to take a slice of the pie might not be a good thing. Okay, so now we're at the point of the story whereby you book Hamilton, and you're being signed on as a swing. Tell us about the swing life. How many roles do you have to learn?
Yes. Well, funnily enough, I was actually signed for a replacement, so to only learn one part. But in my first week of rehearsal, they someone got injured, and it was an easier part, and they needed extra coverage, and they asked me if I would be willing to try and learn this or be extra coverage. And I was like, yeah, sure. I was like, I don't know if I can do it, but I'll do it if you want me to. And I think that saw in their eyes, then they were like, oh, you have the mindset to be a swing, because I learned that part, went on for it a couple times, and then was learning my other part to go in a couple months later. And when a spot opened up, our dance captain at that time left, and so a swing spot opened up, and they asked me if I would go in and take that spot. And so I said yes. I was really excited to be able to like learn all the parts. That's like something that's always been like fascinated me. But I had to learn. There's 6 ensemble guys in Hamilton, and so I needed to learn 6 parts. 6 people. It is different from each Broadway show. I've heard of people needing to learn 11 or 12, and that's to me is like crazy, because like for me 6 is insane. Well, and then a year or two later, 2 years? I think it was 2 years later, then I ended up asking them if I could understudy, and they ended up asking if I would audition for Hamilton, and I did. And then they asked me to be an emergency cover for him, and so I know 7 parts now. Sorry, that's a long roundabout.
Pause. You just dropped a lot on us. You just dropped a lot on us, and you just like low key like slid that in. So
Yes.
you learned 6 roles, and then
Mhm.
you had to go to them and like, hey, knock, knock, knock. I have learned 6 roles. I kind of know what I'm doing, but now can I learn the role of Hamilton? You had to audition within the show itself for the role of Hamilton. Was it a tough
Yes,
audition process to ask?
it was, and well, that's another thing, because you're right, I didn't actually go knocking on their door to ask about Hamilton specifically, but it was one of those that I learned all my parts, and I was kind of like there, and wasn't sure if I should, or at that point I was almost like, do I just trust that I've learned these 6 parts and then like coast and just do the show and just do that?
Yeah.
Or and at that point I was like, I kind of want to learn more, or try to see if I can learn more. And I wasn't sure how to go about asking that, but I was talking to my swing friends and standbys, and they were, amazingly enough, they were just like, you should just ask, and the worst they can say is no, and if they
Yeah.
say no, then you're in the same spot that you were before. But in my mind it was like, oh my gosh, if I ask, they're going to think I'm ungrateful. They're going to think that like, who am I to be like, I'm a swing, but then I want to do like, all of that,
Yes.
like was telling me like I shouldn't, or I was just really afraid to ask. But thankfully with my show friends there, they were like, just do it. It'll be fine. And I did.
Everyone's
I
rooting for you. No one is like being jealous and like, no, Eddie's not gonna, I'm gonna be the one instead. But everyone is like supportive.
yeah, they were really, really supportive. And so I'm like super grateful for that. But I went and asked my stage manager at the time, and I was not very eloquent because I didn't know exactly. I was like,
This is a
like this.
face-to-face thing.
Yeah, face-to-face thing. I like went and I was like, how do I pose the question? But I was like, I just have to like come out and say it. And it was just like, hey, I don't know what the process is of this, but
Yeah.
I know I'm like kind of interested in seeing if I could learn more and like be like extra coverage, or like not just for like myself, but I want to help the show out, and I also like for me would like to see if that's a possibility. And I was just like, what is that process? And the stage manager was like, well, yeah, you'd have to go back and audition through casting again, but I'd be like totally happy to pass that along to them. Like, what part are you interested, or like what do you think you'd like to audition for? And at that point I know. Well, at that point I was like, I think I'm a Lawrence Phillip. It's a younger part, smaller role. I was like, I think I'd be like a decent enough fit for that to do. And she was like, great, I'll like let them know, and I'll keep in touch. And I didn't hear from her for like a month or so. It was like a while, and in my brain I was like, okay, that was a no, and that's fine, and I don't have to worry about it. But she then called me in and sat me down and was like, hey, I know that you talked about wanting to audition for Lawrence Phillip, but she was like, but right now in the company, we don't need that coverage. We have a lot of people that know that part, but there's a part that we don't have a lot of coverage for. And I was wondering if you'd be interested in auditioning for Hamilton to be like an emergency cover. And at that point I was like, what?
How
It's like,
far can the jaw
yeah,
drop?
yeah. I was like, yes, but like I was like, but you believe in me that much? And she was like, yeah, you've showed up to work. You're a great swing. You're a great like asset to the company. And at that point, I was doing a lot of voiceover stuff and other things like in Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh. And she was like, I've seen that you're doing a lot of stuff outside of the theater too, and I feel like you have a lot more to offer than we're giving you the chance to. So I'd love for you to audition for it, and like if you'd be interested. And I was like, yes. I was like, yes, I will. I'll do my best. And I don't know if I will, but I did. And that one was it was all self tapes at that point.
Oh,
For
that was
me,
the
I
peak
sent.
of pandemic? Was it?
It wasn't. Well, this was 2000. I think I was 2000, the end of 2018, like December-ish.
Okay.
So I think I
And they were
submitted
doing
my
self
tapes.
tapes. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But I think it was one of those that since I was, they knew me, and it was like,
Yeah.
I think the people that I don't know when they were like doing their next round of casting, but they ended up having me send self tapes. I got notes from like the not the full creatives, but like the associate director and associate
Mhm.
music director, and talked to them, worked on some stuff, and then sent in another round of tapes, and then found out that they wanted me to be extra coverage for him, and that was in 2019. And I got to go on a couple times before the pandemic happened, but yeah.
Wow. Okay, so I mean, this is quite the journey for you. Um,
Mhm.
how many times has you gone on for Hamilton? Have you counted?
I have, yeah. I've kept a log of all the
I
times
bet,
that
yeah.
I've gone on.
And how long in advance? I guess this is two-part question. How many times have
Mm.
you covered Hamilton, and how long in advance do you know? Because if you know you're covering for Hamilton, you're like calling your people, "Hey, mom,
Yeah,
fly down
yes,
from Michigan and come watch this shit today."
yes, yes, exactly. So I mean, I've been on a total of 6 times since 2019. 4 of those times was pre-pandemic, and then twice was after the pandemic. Actually, just a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
Now my brain has
yeah.
shifted. Thankfully, I mean, me being an emergency cover, I either get a decent amount of times notice or no time notice. Thankfully, I have not had no time notice for an actual show. I've had no time notice for like some rehearsals or put-ins, where like things had to be shuffled around, and they were like, Eddie, can you be Hamilton for this rehearsal because we need other people to like play off of Hamilton? And I was like, I haven't thought about it in a while, but yes. Other than that, though, I think the most time that I've had in notice in advance is about a month, and the least amount of time was a week out
Okay.
that I knew. So
And the month or the week leading up to it, what were you feeling? Were you like,
yeah, yes. Well, so I like the month that, well, I had like my rehearsals learning it, and that built up to being able to do a put in and then do a show that lined up with Hamilton's Vacation, where they gave me that show. And then I went on another time like a month after that, and then the next time I went on was 6 months or 7 months later. And that was, I mean, all of it. Every time I come up to it, it's always like,
do I still remember the lines? Do
do
I
I
still
remember
remember
everything? Yes.
the
Do I remember the
blocking?
lines? Do I remember the blocking? All
Oh,
of
is
that
this
stuff.
one of the
Yes.
6 that I'm thinking about right now?
Yeah. No. Yes. Absolutely. That's always there, and it's something that I haven't fully been able to shake.
Yeah.
Even like this past time, or post pandemic, I had like another like 2 weeks or period where my stage manager was like, we're going to put you on this date, we'll rehearse up to it, and then you can do it. And I did that, and then it was another month later that I was going to go on. That's funny, it works out the same way, same timing. But even then, being like my 6th time doing it, me having done it in rehearsals, all of this stuff, it still is like a fear that I'm like, am I going to screw up? It's not, since I don't have the repetition of it, I have to think
Mm,
about it more. It's a luxury that I haven't been able to feel
yeah.
in doing a show where I'm like, oh, I know this, I've done it before, I'm like confident in it. Like it still doesn't feel that way, but
Yeah.
it is still always exhilarating and
Question.
terrifying. Yes.
Are you the first Asian American Hamilton?
I am not. I believe the first Asian American Hamilton, or the first Asian Hamilton, he is Asian American, sorry, is Jin Ha, but he did it in Chicago.
Mm,
He was a cover on stage ensemble member that covered Hamilton, Burr, and the King. So I
yeah.
think he was actually the first Asian to do it. Mark de la Cruz was the
Mhm,
first Asian to do it on Broadway, and I
mhm.
was the second to do it on Broadway. I guess a friend of mine, I think, ended up looking it up and said I'm the first Chinese American.
You're splitting hairs here.
Hamilton. Yeah, I know, literally. And I mean, same
Yeah.
with
What kind of Asian are you?
oh my god, exactly, exactly.
Wait, you
And
Chinese? Me too. Me too.
yeah,
Racially,
yeah,
we're
yeah.
the same. We're the same.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I stalked you on, as any good host would. I stalked you on Instagram.
Mhm, mhm.
I remember seeing this post that this little boy came up to you.
Mhm,
This little,
mhm.
this little. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this little Asian boy came up to you.
Yes, yes.
Tell us that story.
Um, it is like another crazy story because again, universe, the way things lined up, because I met him in my first show in Hamilton, which was that part that they asked me if I would cover last minute. I learned that in a week and then got to perform that. My mom and sister, or actually, I don't think my sister would have been able to see my first show, my scheduled first show that was supposed to be in August in that year. But because she was moving, she was in Jersey at the time, but because again I had this last minute thing that they were like, will you learn this? And I was like, yes. My mom and sister were able to come, and I happened to, this boy was at the show. He was actually, I feel like he was somewhat viral at the time because he like rapped the opening of Hamilton for his show and tell or something, a talent show, and he was
Yeah.
like 5 or 6 years old and had like Hamilton garb and like and rap this
Yeah.
whole thing. So he was at that show. I was and this will goes to show you like the part that I was learning was like an ensemble cover part, like didn't have any feature or anything, was just kind of there to help with singing and to help with the picture of the show.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's not that it's not important, because actually I was super nervous to do that part since it was like my Broadway debut. But it could easily be considered a throwaway part or not important or anything. But I had an insert, or so I met the boy backstage after. I don't know how they were able to get on the stage, but they did. And I saw him like looking at me, his mom was pointing at me, and I like waved to them, and they came and said hello. And his mom was like, as soon as we saw like your insert in the playbill, Leo is his name. He looked at it and said, he looks like me. That means I can be in this show, is like what his first thought was. And then from watching that, they were looking for me every time I came on stage, even as like in the background, but they were so excited every time I like popped up. And now he's training. He's working on his voice lessons, his dancing, and all this stuff. I've kept in touch with him. I invited them to come back and see me when I went on as Hamilton. And I feel like it's just crazy because again, small little part, yet was so impactful for
Yeah.
this little boy. That's like, I think he's gonna come and like take the world by storm when he comes
It's
into his
like
own.
I'm trying to like imagine from his point of view, instead of like, where's Waldo? It's where's Eddie?
Yeah.
Eddie,
Right.
Eddie.
I see it. There's an Asian.
Goodness, that is so
Yeah.
special. And like,
Yeah.
I think that is why perform and
Why
put
we
our
do it.
faces out there, right? To
Mhm,
show them that
mhm.
it's possible.
Yeah. Yes. And they can strive for more too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
know.
we need a Global Gap needs to follow the trajectory of this boy. I
Yes.
think maybe
Yes.
like in like 15 years time, he'll be there,
Yeah.
and then in his bio, he'll be like, I dedicate this performance to Eddie Lee, the first Asian I saw in Hamilton.
Oh my gosh, that would break my heart. Or I'd be
Oh
like,
my
but I'd be there. I'd be in the audience for that show.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, this is all so great and so rich. A few more questions for you to put you in the hot seat. So
Yeah.
as you know, this is an immigrant artist theater festival. I'm just really curious. Have you met many immigrant artists on Broadway? Whether is it actors, backstage crew, or
Mhm.
designers or musicians?
Yes.
Have you come across them much?
Yes. I know at least in Hamilton, there are a handful of people that are on their visas or immigrants that are like on
Mm,
a visa and through that process. Ooh, I'm sure it's like show specific,
mhm.
definitely, whether or not they will allow that. But I know that Hamilton has like being they have like such huge popularity and everything. And I even know that someone that was on one of the tours just recently that closed got to join our company because one of our dance captains was leaving, and then they like were helping him because they know how tough it is for the application process and all of that, like visa stuff
Mm,
that they need
yeah.
to be able to keep working. So I know that company closed, and as soon as another spot opened up, they like tried to offer this position
Wow.
for them to like make sure that they didn't lose or like have to be sent back in a
Yeah.
way. I but I don't know if that's the same for
Yeah.
all shows.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, before I can't remember the timeline, but before the pandemic, artists on O1 visa that most of us are on, we were
Mhm.
not allowed to join Actors Equity. But
Oh.
recently they have,
Mhm.
and it's very confusing to us because we spent so much money, so much effort to get this visa,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
we are legal to work, and to tell us that you're legal to work except for
The
Actors
hu-
Equity. It
That's so, yeah, that's
Yeah,
really bizarre.
and yeah, and it's really it really boils down to people just not knowing much about this visa and not wanting to deal with it
Uh-huh,
more
uh-huh.
than the fact that we're not allowed to work. It's really not that. But
Got
recently,
it.
during the pandemic, a lot of immigrant artists have been like pushing back, and recently, they changed the rules. People on O1 visa are allowed to join Actors Equity right now.
That's so
So
good. That's great.
yeah, so I'm really hoping that with this, and it just like got passed a few months ago. So I'm
Mhm,
really hoping
mhm.
that with this new change being
Yeah.
implemented, it's going to shift the scale a little bit of how many immigrant artists are able to be on Broadway, you know?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. That's
Yeah,
what I am curious is because I don't know if it's at least one person comes to mind. I don't know if he's on an O1 visa, but I know that he had issues when we were coming back
yeah,
from the pandemic, or that he couldn't work for a little bit because he was trying to get all his
yeah,
paperwork involved, and then he was able to come back. But um, that's just crazy to me because you're right, because you couldn't work on Broadway if you weren't in
yeah.
equity unless there are other rules, but it
But
is
also, but also they expect us to win a Tony, win a
right.
Grammy, win an
Right.
Emmy, and then you can stay in this country. But we're like, we can't even join Broadway like in the first
Right.
place. Like
That's so wild. But I'm
it's
glad that they've
yeah,
loosened the requirements, because you're right. It probably was something that they could do, but like other shows went through all the like the legal stuff and figured out, yes, we're able to do this, and then did the work of it. But if they streamline it, then so many more
yeah,
people could be able, and it won't be as much of a headache for producers, because you're right, it's probably more of that it's more money,
yeah,
more, or not even, might not even be more money, it's probably more time that they don't think that they have, but they do, or they would for
yeah,
the specific person. But thank
yeah.
goodness that equities like made that
Yeah, a lot
easier.
has shifted, but of course, like it'll take like time to see the trickle down effects, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
hopefully
absolutely.
one day you'll have someone from Singapore, someone
Yes.
from Thailand, India,
Yes, please,
joining in
everywhere.
on Broadway. So I guess talking about pandemic, my next question, I have just a few more questions for Eddie, and then I know that
Sure.
people have questions for you. Um,
Sure.
Pandemic times, how has your audition hustling approach shifted?
Ooh.
Because I know
Mhm.
from stalking you on Instagram,
Uh,
a little bird didn't tell me.
oh yeah.
But I know that you're going to a new show this fall, K-pop.
Yes, I am.
So how did you get K-pop? You worked so hard to get Hamilton and you saying bye to Hamilton? What's
I know,
happening?
I know. It's crazy. I mean, the funny thing, again, if you showing timeline, K-pop was actually sometime in 2014 or 2015, I think,
Oh, wow.
was they had the first like audition, like it was a workshop. They were trying to like think about the idea, and they were like, oh, well, if we're wanting to make a show about a K-pop label, let's try and put like a band together. And so I like did this audition. It's funny. Looking at it now, it's like it seemed maybe a little sketchy. Not like it was just like at a rehearsal space or something that I hadn't been to yet and I didn't know about. And it
Deep
was like a
bush league.
flyer.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, I
Is
know.
it deep bush league in a warehouse?
Exactly. Thankfully in Midtown, but yeah, it was somewhere
Yeah.
that I hadn't been. It wasn't Pearl, it wasn't all of that. And but I went there and I like was in the first couple workshops of it. And then it went to off Broadway in 2017. I wasn't a part of it then. I was on Hamilton, but it's been like a long process since then. Like 2014 to now 2022 is when they're finally um, going to Broadway, and it's something that I mean I haven't done yet. I haven't been an original Broadway cast of something, originator role, created something from like the ground up. So I'm kind of excited to get to do that. I know I'm like sad to be leaving Hamilton, but I'm hopefully, who knows, that I think the show will be around a while that I can like
Wait.
go back.
Did you like, hey, Dibs, hold my spot. I'm just gonna do this other show. I'll be back after this show closes. Or like it's like,
Oh,
hey, I'm tendering.
I mean, I did. I ended up asking them if, because they do give leaves of absences
Okay.
for certain things like other productions or workshops or stuff like that. And I did. I ended up asking them if I could do get a leave of absence to do K-pop, and they granted it to me. It's like for a year, but then we'll see. We'll see. They're also like things can change, but I have like my spot held for a moment, which is really
Okay.
nice. It's really cool.
Because we don't know how long K-pop is gonna be for. It depends on
That's
what the
true.
demand is, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's
So
very
did you
true.
have to audition for K-pop? I missed that piece of information.
I did.
Okay.
I mean, there was like a workshop in 2019 that I auditioned for. It was like my first time going back
Yeah.
to it. And then that's why I came back
Yeah.
into there, and then there was like another workshop recently, and then yeah. So,
Can you tell us a little bit more about your role in K-pop, or you can't say it?
well, I mean, what's everything that I could say? I think, well, things are changing always. So I do think that it's a show about a Korean K-pop label, a fictional one. So there's all original music, and an original idea. But I think it's billed as it's like a one time only. They've rented out a Broadway house, and they have a boy band, a girl band, and a solo artist, and then drama ensues from there. I'm part of the boy band. At this point, my name is Sky. But that's all. I feel like that's all that I
Okay.
know really that can be concrete for it. But
Thank you. Thank
it'd
you
be
for
really
that. We'll be
cool.
sure to watch out for you
Yeah,
this fall on
yeah.
K-pop. Like I guess that kind of like answered my question that you're still hustling even with Hamilton because
Mhm.
you auditioned for the workshop version for this in 2019 when you already have Hamilton.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's
Yes.
not like as if like, oh, I landed this big gig and then I'm like cruising. But you're
I
still
mean,
doing voiceover work for Pokemon,
trying.
Yu-Gi-Oh, and you're still
Mhm.
auditioning for K-pop. So
Yeah. I try. Yeah, I try. I mean, I try. Like a lot of people still do that. I mean, I know like I'm not the only one. There's people that in the show that I've like they book TV gigs, like leave for a time, come back. There's a lot of that goes on, and I don't know. For me, it's like hard to sit still, and I think it's probably because of the hustling mind of that as like a new artist. When I came here, it was like I need to get as much, I need to say yes to everything, I need to try and get as much experience, and it's been hard. It was hard to juggle. I actually do think, to answer your question from with the pandemic, coming up to the pandemic, I was hitting major burnout. I was like really exhausted. I was having some vocal issues again. I had to go to like a voice therapist. I thought I had a cyst on my cords, but ended up being a pseudocyst, thankfully. But I had to be like on vocal rest, only used it whenever I was doing a job. My well, fiance now, but at the time was my girlfriend. I had to like
I
come
know her.
home and like,
I just saw her show.
you did? Oh
I
my gosh,
did.
Which way to the stage? Yeah. She's doing Anne of Green Gables next up in Connecticut. Guys, go see that if you're around. It's the show that we met doing.
Guys,
Sorry.
this is a very talented power couple. Congratulations.
Thanks, thank you.
When's the wedding?
I don't know. We just got engaged like in March, so it's very fresh.
Congratulations. So happy for
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, sorry. Sorry to sidetrack.
Oh no, well, I'm sorry. I had to add that in.
Yeah.
I love her, but I mean, bless her heart. When I was having those vocal issues, I was like coming home and just texting on my phone and like having her read it. Like I wasn't talking. But so I hit like pretty bad burnout when like the pandemic